It's happening now. And whether you've been consciously tracking astrology or not, whether you believe in planetary movements or simply feel something shifting beneath your everyday routines, Neptune in Aries has already begun working on you. This is not a distant transit. This is not something theoretical. This is an energetic turning point that alters how identity, intuition, and spiritual direction intersect. And while many people are talking about awakenings, breakthroughs, and manifestations, what matters most during this phase is not what you do, but what you avoid. Because Neptune in Aries doesn't punish loudly. It dissolves quietly. And the people who struggle the most during this transit won't be the unawakened. It will be the ones who think they already are. One of the most common mistakes happening right now is mistaking intensity for alignment. Aries' energy is sharp, it's fast, it moves with urgency. Neptune, on the other hand, blurs edges, softens certainty, and dissolves boundaries. When these two merge, many people feel a sudden rush of emotion, inspiration, anger, motivation, or clarity, and immediately assume it's intuition. They act quickly, they speak impulsively, they make declarations about their truth, their purpose, or their next big move. But intensity does not always equal truth, and under Neptune in Aries, the emotional surge can come before clarity has fully formed. Acting too fast right now can lock you into a version of yourself that was meant to be observed, not expressed. This is why so many people later feel regret, confusion, or emotional whiplash. The awakening is real, but the timing matters. Neptune asks for discernment. Aries demands action. The mistake is letting action lead before discernment has finished speaking. Another subtle trap is performing spirituality instead of inhabiting it. During this transit, identity becomes amplified. People become hyper-aware of how they present their beliefs, their calmness, their maturity, their spiritual depth. You may notice yourself wanting to appear healed, centered, unbothered, evolved. But Neptune doesn't reward appearance. It dissolves it. When you prioritize looking aligned over being honest, your intuition weakens. You start editing your reactions instead of understanding them. You start suppressing emotions in the name of peace, calling it growth, when in reality it's avoidance. Aries' energy is raw. It wants truth, not polish. Neptune strips away false narratives. Together, they expose where you've been wearing spirituality as an identity instead of living it as a practice. And the more you try to maintain an image, the more disconnected you feel inside. Right now, many people are also falling into the illusion of potential. Neptune has always ruled dreams, imagination, and what could be. Aries rules action and immediacy. When they combine, it becomes dangerously easy to assume that what you feel is already happening. You may project futures onto people, relationships, or situations that have not shown any real movement. You give more time, more patience, more emotional investment because you believe transformation is imminent. But potential is not progress. And Neptune in Aries exposes this harshly. This is not a transit that rewards waiting for others to become who they might be. It rewards responding to who they are now. The same applies to your work, your goals, and your path. Holding on to visions without grounded steps leads to stagnation disguised as hope. And hope, when it replaces observation, becomes one of the most anti-spiritual forces of all. Another mistake unfolding quietly is spiritual bypassing disguised as surrender. Phrases like, "everything happens for a reason," or "the universe will handle it," may sound comforting, but under this transit, they can become a way to avoid responsibility. Neptune can make life feel overwhelming, mysterious, and uncontrollable. Aries exists to remind you that you still have agency. When you hand every decision over to fate, you weaken the very power this transit is trying to awaken in you. Not everything is a sign. Not every delay is divine timing. Some situations remain unresolved simply because you haven't acted. Neptune blurs accountability. Aries demands it. And together, they reveal where you've been waiting instead of participating. Spiritual growth does not mean passivity. It means conscious engagement with your choices. Many people right now are also ignoring their environment, and this is more damaging than it seems. Neptune increases sensitivity, Aries increases reactivity. The spaces you occupy, the people you sit around, the conversations you tolerate, all have a stronger impact now. You may notice places that once felt fine suddenly feel heavy, draining, or restrictive. This is not negativity. This is awareness. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe for daily cosmic insights, astrology updates, and spiritual guidance, because the universe always has a message for you. The mistake is forcing yourself to stay out of habit, loyalty, or comfort. Staying in environments that no longer match your frequency slowly erodes your clarity. You begin to doubt yourself, second-guess your instincts, or feel inexplicably tired. This transit doesn't ask you to burn everything down, it asks you to notice where you've outgrown the container you're still standing in. Another overlooked error is confusing emotional suppression with spiritual maturity. Many people are trying to be the bigger person right now. They choose silence over honesty, tolerance over boundaries, calmness over truth. And while this may look evolved on the surface, it creates internal fracture. Aries energy requires self-respect. Neptune requires authenticity. When you silence yourself to maintain peace, you teach your nervous system that your truth is unsafe. Over time, intuition fades, resentment builds, and the awakening you thought you were protecting quietly slips away. Spiritual strength is not silence, it's alignment. And alignment sometimes requires discomfort. Energy leakage is another major theme right now. Neptune dissolves boundaries, Aries ignites desire. Together, they reveal where you've been giving too much without noticing. Emotional labor, time, forgiveness, attention, availability. You may suddenly feel the urge to pull back, to reclaim space, to say no without explaining yourself. This is not selfishness, this is recalibration. The mistake is ignoring that instinct and continuing to overextend in the name of kindness or loyalty. You don't reclaim energy by fighting for it. You reclaim it by no longer offering it where it doesn't belong. Perhaps the most dangerous mistake of all is mistaking confusion for failure. Neptune in Aries creates periods where clarity dissolves before direction forms. Many people panic here. They assume they've lost their intuition, their purpose, their spiritual connection. But this is the void where recalibration happens. The old identity dissolves before the new one stabilizes. The mistake is rushing to define yourself too quickly, attaching to labels, paths, or decisions before the fog has lifted. This transit is not about certainty. It's about courage in the unknown, quiet consistency, small, honest actions, grounded presence. Despite all these warnings, this is not a punishing phase, it's a refining one. Neptune in Aries is stripping away what is false, exaggerated, performative, or outdated. It rewards humility. It rewards self-respect. It rewards the willingness to admit where you've been avoiding truth. Most people will miss the deeper gift of this transit because they're focused on outcomes. But those who stay grounded, who choose honesty over illusion, action over fantasy, alignment over performance, will find themselves stronger, clearer, and more embodied than ever before. If you're still listening, it's because something here resonated, not as fear, but as recognition. You don't need to fix everything today. You don't need to master this transit overnight. You just need to avoid the traps that quietly pull people off their path. Stay present, stay honest, stay awake to what is real. Neptune is clearing the fog. Aries is lighting the fire. And the direction you choose now shapes far more than you realize. This is not the end of your awakening. It's the moment it becomes real. And if this message found you, you already know why. What happens after you avoid the Neptune in Aries traps? Something begins to change the moment you stop falling into the traps most people don't even realize exist. It doesn't happen dramatically. There's no loud sign from the universe, no instant clarity, no cinematic breakthrough. What happens instead is quieter and far more powerful. Your nervous system starts to relax. Your mind stops reaching outward for validation. Your intuition becomes less frantic and more precise. Under Neptune in Aries, avoiding the wrong moves doesn't just protect your energy, it recalibrates it. One of the first things people notice after stepping out of illusion is a strange sense of emotional sobriety. The highs are not as chaotic. The lows don't feel as destabilizing. This doesn't mean life becomes flat. It means it becomes honest. Neptune dissolves fantasy, and Aries sharpens awareness. Together, they strip away emotional exaggeration. You stop dramatizing your inner world. You stop assigning meaning where none exists. And in that simplicity, something very rare happens. You begin trusting yourself again, not because you feel certain, but because you feel present. Presence is the real gift of this transit. When the fog clears, even slightly, your attention returns to your body. You become aware of when something feels off without needing to explain it. You feel when a conversation drains you before it drains you completely. You sense misalignment earlier before it turns into regret. This is not hypervigilance. This is discernment returning. Neptune doesn't remove intuition, it removes noise. Aries then teaches you to respond instead of react. Another shift that follows is the collapse of false urgency. Many people feel pressured right now to figure everything out. Purpose, direction, identity, relationships. But once you stop chasing intensity as truth, the pressure eases. You realize that not everything needs an answer immediately. Some things need space. Some things need silence. Some things need to reveal themselves through time rather than force. Under Neptune in Aries, clarity does not come from pushing harder. It comes from standing still long enough to notice what's actually moving toward you. You may also notice a recalibration in your relationships. Not dramatic endings, not sudden conflicts, just subtle distance from dynamics that were built on confusion, projection, or unspoken expectations. Conversations feel different. Your tolerance for ambiguity shrinks. You don't argue as much, not because you're suppressing yourself, but because you're no longer trying to convince anyone of your worth or perspective. Aries gives you self-respect. Neptune dissolves the need to prove. Together, they create quiet confidence. This is also when energy starts returning, not in bursts of motivation, but in steadiness. You wake up with a clearer sense of where your attention belongs. You stop leaking emotional labor into situations that don't replenish you. You don't explain yourself as much. You don't apologize for existing. And you don't feel guilty for needing space. This is not detachment, it's embodiment. You are back inside your own life instead of observing it from the outside. Perhaps the most profound shift is the return of grounded hope. Not hope based on fantasy or future versions of people, but hope rooted in reality. You begin trusting what is happening instead of clinging to what could happen. And that changes everything. Because under Neptune in Aries, reality is where power lives. Once you stop romanticizing uncertainty, the path forward becomes simpler. Not easier, simpler. This is the phase where people often say, "I don't know what changed, but I feel different." That difference is alignment, and it sets the stage for what comes next. Because once alignment stabilizes, action becomes unavoidable. Not impulsive action, true action, and that's where part 3 begins. Why Neptune in Aries forces you to choose yourself. At some point during this transit, a moment arrives that feels deceptively ordinary. A conversation, a decision, an opportunity, a realization in the middle of an ordinary day. And yet, everything hinges on how you respond. Neptune in Aries is not subtle forever. Once awareness has been restored, it demands choice. You cannot unknow what you now know, and from that point on, neutrality becomes uncomfortable. This is where many people struggle, because choosing yourself doesn't always feel spiritual, it doesn't always feel kind, it doesn't always feel peaceful. Sometimes it feels like saying no when you were trained to say yes. Sometimes it feels like disappointing others to stop betraying yourself. Sometimes it feels like letting go of identities that once made you feel safe. Neptune dissolves the old self-image. Aries asks you to stand in what remains. Choosing yourself during this transit does not mean isolating or becoming rigid. It means becoming honest. Honest about what drains you. Honest about what you want. Honest about where you've been settling. The universe is not testing you right now. It's watching how you respond when clarity arrives. Because clarity without action leads back to confusion. And this transit will not let you unsee the truth once it's been revealed. You may notice that certain situations now demand a response. Avoidance feels heavier than confrontation. Silence feels louder than honesty. Staying feels more exhausting than leaving. This is Aries energy asserting itself. It does not want endless processing, it wants movement. But Neptune ensures that movement must be aligned, not reactive. This is why impulsive decisions still backfire under this transit. The difference now is that aligned action feels calm, not chaotic. Choosing yourself also means releasing spiritual guilt. The belief that growth must be gentle, that awakening must be graceful, that evolution must always look compassionate. Neptune in Aries challenges this myth. Some transformations require firmness. Some truths arrive without softness. Some awakenings involve anger, grief, or loss before peace. This does not make you less spiritual. It makes you real. As this continues, your sense of identity begins to stabilize around something deeper than roles or labels. You stop asking who you should be and start responding to who you are. And that shift is irreversible. The people who thrive during Neptune in Aries are not the ones who escape discomfort. They are the ones who stop negotiating their truth. Eventually, this creates a powerful internal shift. Decisions become cleaner. Boundaries become clearer. You trust your instincts without needing external validation. You stop seeking permission to live in alignment. And perhaps most importantly, you stop waiting. Waiting for signs. Waiting for certainty. Waiting for the universe to move first. Because by now you understand that the universe already did. Neptune cleared the illusion. Aries ignited the will. And you are standing in the space between awareness and action. This is not the end of the story. It's the point where the story becomes yours. And if these words stayed with you longer than expected, if something here felt personal, grounding, or unsettling in a quiet way, then this message was not random. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're right where the decision matters, and that's exactly where this transit wants you.